What is up, guys? Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great night so far. In today's episode, what we'll be discussing is the Detroit Pistons training camp roster. Now, I know officially the Detroit Pistons have not put out a tweet from their public relations department. I have been following each Detroit Pistons signing. I made a depth chart. I've tracked everything this summer. We're going to be going over it. We'll be discussing and talking about each individual player for maybe a minute to 3 minutes at the most. And kind of just breaking down this training camp roster. I also want to give some love to certain players on this depth chart that are on the training camp roster. Some players to look out for to possibly maybe being on the Motor City Cruise or maybe that final roster spot. Really don't know what's going to happen with that final roster spot, so it should be a fun episode. Let's get into it. As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I did make a graphic for every player that the Detroit Pistons have signed, whether it was free agency this summer, training camp deals that we're getting a little bit more as we get closer to the NBA preseason. This is normal. It's normal to carry this many guys going into the preseason. You need bodies to practice, so it does make sense that the Pistons have 22 players on their roster as of right now. It will get cut down to 15 standard contracts and 3 two-ways, as you guys know, but we're going to be going over each individual player in this graphic that I did make today. If you're an audio listener, I'm going to keep you guys in this conversation like I always try to do. We got point guard through center and just kind of like a depth chart. Obviously, this is my depth chart. It's not going to be, maybe on par with like what JB Bickerstaff does or other people that make their depth charts. Depth charts are honestly meant to be picked apart and debated, and I want you guys to join in on the conversation. Like, if there's a player that I have in here that you just don't agree with, let me know. Let me know. It's like, hey, I don't agree that you have Duncan Robinson at shooting guard. I think I have Mars as small forward. Let me know. That's why I love doing podcasts with you guys. There's discourse here, and it's just healthy, fun conversations. But let's get into this depth chart, okay? Rambled for over a minute and a half. Apologize. So, Cade Cunningham, I think we can all agree he's going to be the starting point guard. There's no debating there. All-star last season, 26 points a game, 9 assists. He's had a hell of a season, man. I'm really intrigued and interested to see what does happen with Jaden Ivey coming back in the fold. Is he still able to average that 26 points a game? Do the assists go down a little bit since he won't have the ball in his hands as much? I do think he still will have the ball in his hands. I just don't think we're going to see the usage that we did because there was no Jaden Ivey. It was like Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Dennis Schroeder. Obviously, none of those guys are on the roster. Malik Beasley's still kind of pending. We're not going to get into that in today's episode, but you guys get what I'm saying. Cade's going to be your starting point guard. There's no really debating that. Starting shooting guard, I have Jaden Ivey. He started next to Cade in 30 games last year. And I really liked what I saw out of Jaden Ivey last year. I really thought he was, putting it all together. 17 points a game, shot 40% from 3, 41% to be exact on 5 attempts a game. I think the one thing with him that I have questions with is, are they going to, play him, high 30s right off the gate coming off of that injury? Are they going to maybe have him on a minute restriction to start the season? We'll have to wait and see how these preseason games go. I think that'll answer a lot of the questions that I have personally, but as of right now, he is going to be my starting shooting guard in this depth chart for this video. Small forward, I think we can also agree. Asar Thompson to me is your starting small forward. Last season was tough, not only for Asar, but for Pistons fans. The blood clot situation was just really, we didn't know when he was going to play. We didn't know when he was going to come back. And when he did come back, I was so impressed with the way he conditioned himself on the fly in the training camp. And once he did get into, back into basketball shape and his conditioning got better, we just saw how dominant he is defensively. Offensively, I think we still have our questions with Asar. Did the jump shot improve this offseason with Fred Vincent? Did his free throw improve? Obviously, he got to the free throw line a lot during the playoffs against the Knicks. Can he be a 70% free throw shooter? I think those are the questions I have going into the season with the Sar. Did the handle get tighter? So he's one player that I have a lot of questions about, and my expectations for him are very high because I see the type of player that he could possibly be, but he is my starting small forward in this projection. Starting power forward, still have Tobias Harris. He's on the last year of a deal. I think last season I was really impressed with Tobias Harris. Crashed in the glass. Like the type of rebounder he was, I didn't expect that. I thought the defense was really good given his age. And when we talk about someone being 30 and calling them old in NBA terms is crazy to me because I'm the same age as Tobias Harris. I think I might be like 6 months older. I'm 33. He's 32. But you guys kind of get the point. Like, Tobias is getting up there in age. He will be the Detroit Pistons starting power forward. Given if they address this or not, I don't really think they are going to right now. Given the market, there's not a whole lot of power forwards in the free agency market that you could sign. Do you trade for one? I don't know. Did they pull a Cat thing where the Knicks just trade for Cat like a day before the season? I'm not sure if there's a trade like that even available on the market right now across the NBA. But right now, Tobias Harris is going to be my starting power forward. Starting center, Jalen Duren. Obviously, first 25 games of the season was very inconsistent for JD, but I really thought after that press conference, calling himself out, saying that he was playing soft, and I think the coaching staff really worked with him during the season and during the offseason. He's been working with the guard whisperer who also trains Evan Mobley, who's really transformed his game, shooting threes, mid-range, post-up. So JD's been in the lab with one of the better NBA trainers this summer. And I've told you guys, I think we might see some jump shots out of him this year. I think there's going to be situations, maybe it's late clock situations, that he's shooting some elbow jumpers, just kind of expanding his game that way. Maybe it's like 1 or 2 a game, but I'm expecting big things out of JD. Obviously, him and Jaden Ivey are in the contract extension boat right now. They have until October to, get something straightened out. I don't really know if they're going to, and if they don't, it's not really a red flag, but it'll be interesting to see if either of these guys get contract extensions. But let's recap the starting lineup real quick. So Cade Cunningham at point guard, Jaden Ivey at shooting guard, Asar Thompson small forward, Tobias Harris power forward, and Jalen Duren center. I think that's going to be your starting five. Obviously, with Jaden Ivey only playing 30 games, Asar wasn't in the lineup, so you had THJ in that situation a lot of the time. So this starting five only played a whopping 2 games together for a total of 5 minutes per NBA.com, which is wild to think about, you guys. So really interested to see a healthy offseason from the starting five and how they can gel together, how they can play together on the floor healthy. Let's get into the second unit. I know there's going to be debate here already, and that I'm fine with that. I want you guys to debate with me. I want you guys to tell me, why do you have this player here? So I have Caris LeVert as a backup point guard. Now, he's played shooting guard in different stops in his career. Trajan Langdon had mentioned with the media a couple months ago, he envisions Jaden Ivey and Caris LeVert splitting the minutes at point guard. I did a podcast with Zarek on Sunday. If you guys haven't watched or listened to that, definitely do. And after talking to him, I think he kind of changed my thought process because by default, I just had Jaden Ivey as a backup point guard because that's what happened last year when they staggered Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey was just the backup point guard. But since the Pistons haven't signed a backup guard, there are some options, as you guys can see, some G League options, some two-way options. But I think Caris LeVert, to me, is going to get a lot of on-ball reps leading the second unit. Now, could Jaden Ivey, lead the second unit as a backup point guard? Absolutely. I honestly think like Caris LeVert and Jaden Ivey are going to split a lot of these minutes. I could see some nights Jaden Ivey's just taking the ball up the court and Karras is playing off ball. I could see some nights Karras is bringing the ball up the court and Jaden Ivey is playing off ball. There's a lot of versatility here with this second unit, and I honestly think just for this video, this podcast, I have Karras as the backup point guard for the Pistons. Backup shooting guard to backup Jaden Ivey. I have Duncan Robinson. Now, I honestly think the way they pivoted from Malik Beasley to Duncan Robinson, trading Simone Fontecchio, getting the deal that you got Duncan Robinson on initially, I've told you guys I crashed out when I saw the 3 years, $48 million, because I thought that was kind of a lot. But to see that it was just a 1 year guaranteed, like fully guaranteed deal, and then the last 2 years of the contract are non-guaranteed. Now, this is kind of like a 1 year deal essentially, to see if Duncan can really flow with this second unit. I could see situations in crunch time. Maybe Duncan Robinson is out there if you need more floor spacers. He's a very versatile player. So, he can play shooting guard. He can bring the ball up the court sometimes. He can play small forward. Miami had him at power forward last year, which Miami was just on some crazy lineups with Spo down there. I really don't know what's going down in Miami. But a 6'7" Duncan Robinson at power forward. I said 6'7". I know someone's going to be in the comments. Hey, you said 6'7". Grow up. But I do have Duncan Robinson at backup shooting guard for the Detroit Pistons. Backup small forward to backup Ausar Thompson. Got Ron Holland. Now, Ron Holland to me, I think can play in between 2 through 3. I think there could be situations where maybe, you're in foul trouble or the team's a little bit smaller. You could throw Ron Holland at power forward. But I think that's such a niche lineup that it might happen maybe once or twice this year. But I do have him as a backup small forward. I really just love the way he played last year. I love that he came in, identified a role for himself, and he thrived in it. He was the energizer. He really helped the second unit push the pace. If the starting lineup wasn't running, playing that transition game, Ron Holland immediately would be just a defensive menace out there, and he would push the pace and talk shit, and you might get in a couple of fights. Love that about Ron Holland. He's one of my favorite players on this team. But I do have him as a backup small forward. I'm expecting really big things out of him. I've told you guys before in previous podcasts this summer, that summer league really had me feeling good about him. Had me feeling good about his sophomore season. That jump shot looks really good. His landing looks a lot better. His passing, I thought, was on full display. His processing was great. His defense, I thought, was better than it was. But I know it's summer league and it's really hard to, take away positives because a lot of those guys are G League guys or non-guaranteed guys, fighting for, NBA roster spots. But that's what you want to see out of, your former number 5 overall pick from a season ago. But I have him as a backup small forward on this team. Now, backup power forward, this is so hard because, I've had so many conversations with different podcasters, different YouTubers, and I've gotten a couple of different answers. I've had some people tell me it's Ausar Thompson. Ausar Thompson's going to be your backup power forward. I've had people come up and tell me, hey, Anthony, they just signed Javonte Green. Javonte Green can play some power forward. He's got a 7-foot wingspan. He's 6'5". I've seen some people float out the idea maybe Isaiah Stewart can play some backup power forward behind Tobias. I've even seen maybe Bobby Klippman is ready for that backup power forward minutes. I don't know, you guys. I have no idea what they're going to do at backup forward. They haven't addressed it. Could Ausar play it theoretically? Yes. But I feel good about it. Probably not. Just because I don't want to stagger him. I don't even like staggering Jaden Ivey. I just don't. I'd rather keep these guys fresh throughout the season. But I get lineup shuffling and it can be very difficult for a coach. And I'm not a coach. I'm not sitting up here saying that I'm a coach. I don't know. But, if you are going to play Ausar at power forward, cool. Until you address one, until you sign one. Kind of reminds me of the backup point guard situation we had last year where each post-game podcast we're coming up here and saying, like, man, if we just had a backup point guard to settle things down, because Cade's gassed by the fourth quarter, Jaden Ivey's gassed by the fourth quarter, I kind of think the same thing's going to happen with Tobias. And, like, knock on wood, anything happens to Tobias, like, who's going to be your starting power forward? Like, you're relying a lot on Tobias to stay healthy, and then what are you going to do at backup power forward? I don't have the answers. Maybe the preseason will give us an indication of what JB may be thinking with that backup for it. But as of right now, we just don't have one. Definitely let me know if you're watching live on YouTube right now, your thought process with the backup power forward situation. If there's anyone in this depth chart you think that can kind of slide in and add a backup for, do you think it's going to be a Asar staggering with small forward minutes and power forward minutes? Do you think they'll try Bobby Klitman to see if he's ready for it? Could you see Javonte Green? Could you see Ron Holland? Definitely let me know. It's one question I have, and I just don't have, the answer to. So, backup center, it's Isaiah Stewart. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me here. What he did last season, I thought was so important for his role, because I've really felt, whether it was Dwayne Casey, no shot at Dwayne Casey, because I always felt the two big lineup was kind of forced from the organization internally, because even before Dwayne Casey got here, they were trying the two big lineups. You guys remember, like, the Andre Drummond, Greg Monroe two big lineups with Josh Smith. Like, the organization has always tried to do this two big lineup thing, and it just hasn't worked. Only kind of worked with Blake Griffin and Andre, because Blake could shoot. I know I'm rambling here. I really felt that JB came in and he identified a role for Isaiah Stewart. He identified him as just being that disruptor defensively, protecting the rim and thriving in it. Obviously, I'd like to see Isaiah Stewart score more. I'd like to see him pick and pop a little bit more. I'd really like to see him just, shoot the ball a little bit more, man. If I can get like 7-8 points a game out of Isaiah Stewart as my backup center, man, I am good. I am good. If you're bringing that rim protection, you're bringing that switchability defensively, to me, that just in the contract too, $15 million a year for a backup center right now is cheap. That contract is probably one of the best contracts in the league. Really like Isaiah Stewart as the backup center. I think this is kind of be a combination of like what you'll see in terms of the rotation. I think I definitely got center right, probably got backup shooting guard right, and maybe backup small forward. I think you could definitely debate with backup point guard. You could fill me in who's going to be the backup for, because I just don't know, you guys. But those are the backups. Now, this is where podcast just gets like basketball sicko territory, you guys. If you want to click off, I completely understand. Because we're getting into G League guys. We're getting into guys that get no playing time. But let's get into it. Third string point guard, Donis Jenkins. He's a two-way guy. Played his ass off during the summer league, and I was so impressed with his pace. I've been impressed with his pace since the Pistons signed him. Just the way he plays basketball, I've been so impressed with. The defense, I think, did improve. He just tore it up in the G League this year. Absolutely tore it up. I think he's a big reason why they had a lot of success in the G. Now, does he make the team? I'm not entirely sure. I think if he has a similar camp or a similar production as he did in Summer League, Trajan and JB, they're going to have some really tough decisions to make. Who's going to make that 15th roster spot, if they are going to fill it, or if they're just kind of still playing the waiting game with the Malik Beasley situation. There's that. But Donis Jenkins, to me, is a player I think you guys should pay attention to. He's a player that will probably get some clock during the preseason, and he's on a two-way, so he can spend time with the Detroit Pistons and time with the Motor City Crew. So if you want to possibly catch Donis Jenkins at a Crews game, he'll probably be the starting point guard. As for the Pistons, really interested to see what does happen with preseason games. So, third string shooting guard, I have Marcus Sasser. Now, I've mentioned Marcus Sasser the past 3 weeks on the pod, and it's all in the context of, like, what do the Pistons do with him? And I just don't know. He's in a really tough spot. Last year he played third string point guard, I want to say. He did play backup point guard when Jaden Ivey got hurt, but I think where the Pistons are at, I think Harris and Jaden will probably get most of the, on-ball reps there. So you're going to slate Marcus Sasser in at a third string shooting guard. We've seen when he does get playing time, he produces, he can score. He's a very tenacious defender. It's just right now, there's just not a solidified role for him under JB Bickerstaff. And like I've mentioned, it's not really his fault. He was drafted by a previous regime. And it just is what it is at this point. So, backup small forward, Javonte Green. Now, he was signed, I want to say, maybe it was a month ago. Maybe it was like 2-3 weeks ago. Time's is flying by so fast, you guys. He was signed, and I think a lot of people were like, huh. Because at that time, the Pistons had 2 available roster spots. They signed Green. He's known for his defense. Shot okay from 3, like 30-ish% from 3. I'm not really entirely sure if he's going to make the roster, but there's a good chance. He's a good defender. I had mentioned he probably would play a Wendell Moore role. If you guys remember him last year, he played in some games with the Detroit Pistons, but didn't play in each and every game. He only really played if there was an injury or if it was a blowout. I think Javonte Green will play a similar role, and I think he's a good player to have on this roster. Given you have Asar Thompson and Ron Holland, I think going up in practice against a player like that is known for his defense can really challenge these guys and, make them better. Iron sharpens iron. So you're going up against a guy that is a good defender. He's just going to make players like Asar and Ron or, Jaden Ivey or Cade Cunningham or whoever he's going up against in practice better. So Javonte Green is a third string small forward. I think there could be a situation where maybe he's a backup power forward. I just don't know. 6'5", 7-foot wingspan. So there's a little bit of information about Javonte Green that I could find. Now, third string power forward, he was a second-round pick, Bobby Klitman. Now, Bobby spent most of his time last season with the Motor City Cruise. He had a calf contusion for several months. That's why the Pistons didn't play him. And then when he did play, it was the final game of the season. I thought he did pretty good. Didn't really make too many impressions from me personally with the Pistons because he just didn't get the opportunity to play. There was, garbage time. He wasn't scoring. It was just kind of passing, rebounding. But you can't really evaluate someone that is playing with like 30, 20 seconds left in the game, right? I think with Bobby, the Summer League was very underwhelming for me. I think there was a lot of eyes on him. There's a lot of expectations given like what he did in the Summer League last season. And he did pretty well in the G League. I just don't know what to expect out of him. It might be another development year for him with the Motor City Cruise, and that's completely fine. If he needs more development, I'm not really expecting Bobby to come in and play 30 minutes a game. If he's not ready for the backup power forward position, that's fine. That is completely fine. But I really don't know what to expect out of him this season. Maybe he does have a good, training camp, lights it up in the preseason. Maybe we're having conversations of, maybe we do have a backup power forward in Bobby Klitman. He did add weight, 6'11", can handle the rock, can pass. Just need him to make those open three-point shots a little bit more for my liking to feel confident up here. Okay, third string center. Paul Reed, B-ball Paul. So he's probably not going to play that much this upcoming season. I think he'll have a similar role where whether Isaiah Stewart or Jalen Duren are in foul trouble, Paul Reed will play. If there's an injury, hope not, Paul Reed will probably play, or maybe JB's just looking for a different look. I think he was in a similar boat to Marcus Sasser, where this team has a lot of depth, but it's good to carry 3 centers on the roster, and I think that's why the Detroit Pistons decided to bring him back. But we do have Paul Reed as a third-string center. We are going into the home stretch of this podcast. We're going to get into 4-stringers and 5th-stringers. I am just going to take a quick break, take a drink of water, because I've been talking nonstop for about 25 minutes. So give me a second, and we'll finish up this podcast with these 4-string and 5th-string guys. Okay, let's wrap this up. So, last night, the Detroit Pistons signed a point guard, and they signed Quincy, I think it's Alvorier, if I had to try it first try. So, he played for the Lakers last year. He was undrafted. He's one of their two-way guys. He just got signed. Now, if that name does sound familiar, really big fan of Steph Curry. I got a picture with Steph. Steph literally signed him to Under Armour because that's how much he liked the kid. A little, tidbit cool story about him. Don't really know what to expect out of him. If I did have to make a guess, this is going to be a Motor City Cruise guy. This is going to be possibly a backup point guard with the Cruise. It could be Donis Jenkins and him. Those could be your, 1 and 2 starting point guard, backup point guard. So a lot of these guys that are on training camp deals are G League guys that could play for the Motor City Cruise, or they're auditioning for other teams across the league. You also have to remember that. So, 4-string shooting guard, the Detroit Pistons' only draft pick this summer, Chaz Lanier. Now, Chaz Lanier, I think, when you look at the shooting guard depth, I don't really see a whole lot of room for him right now. Now, that could change. It could change if he has a good training camp and, I almost said summer league, good preseason games. But as of right now, I just don't see a whole lot of clock for him. He could be a player like Bobby Klitman that's just spending time in the G League and developing that way. You see it with organizations that are playoff teams that they draft these guys and they're in the G League. They get priority, so they're starting. They're getting all those reps. They're getting, their 15 shots a night and, working with these G League coaches to develop the correct way. I think that could be a path for Chaz Lanier. Again, shooting guard is probably the most stacked room right now with the Pistons. They have so many shooting guards on this roster. And you guys can see it. I mean, they're 5 deep with this just training camp roster. 4-string small forward, Bryce Williams. Now, Bryce Williams was on the Summer League team. I think a lot of Pistons fans were very hyped about him, and deservedly so. He went undrafted. Didn't really see too much out of him in the Summer League. He was actually off the bench, which I was kind of surprised. I thought he would actually get, starting minutes, but that really wasn't the case. Didn't really see too much out of him to really form an opinion, but you can kind of look at his, college stats. Played in the Big Ten, did pretty well. This could be a guy as well that is auditioning for a 2-way contract with other NBA teams, or he could be here locally for the Motor City Cruise, playing small forward and contributing as a starter or maybe even off the bench. Dawson Garcia, that name does sound familiar. He was also on the Detroit Pistons Summer League team. He's a stretch 4. Made a couple in the Summer League. Nothing really to note here. Can really play out of the post, pass a little bit. But again, didn't really see too much out of him for me to have a very strong opinion about him. I think preseason will tell me a little bit more about what the type of player he is and what his pathway may be in the NBA. 4-string center. This is a 2-way contract. Tolu Smith. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Tolu Smith. Played with the Motor City Cruise, starting center. Got a 2-way contract on the second half of the G League season. Spent some time with the Detroit Pistons. He was on their training camp roster last season. A lot of fans are really high on Tolu Smith, and I can understand why. He's just a very intriguing player, but I have him as a 4-string center. Much like the shooting guard room, the center room is pretty stacked in itself. I mean, you have Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and Paul Reed. Tolu Smith, to me, is just going to be your 4-string center. And then to wrap up this podcast, you guys, the Motor City Cruise did make a trade last week, and they traded for Charles Bediako. Now, Charles Bediako played for the San Antonio Spurs, G League team, the Austin Spurs. He played for the Denver Nuggets affiliate, the Grand Rapids Gold here locally in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan. So the Cruise actually traded for him. And I think what you'll see out of him is he's going to be competing with Tolu Smith. In terms of not with the Pistons, with the two-way stuff, I think he'll be competing with Tolu Smith more in the G League. Because I think there's a good shot that Tolu does get recognized by another NBA team. They might try to standard contract him eventually. But Charles, to me, will be playing backup center. There's a reason why the Crews do this so often. They get a lot of their players poached from other NBA organizations because they do a very good job of developing those guys down there. Jamel McMillan does a hell of a job. He's had so many players poached from him. It's because he's a good coach and he gets these guys ready for the NBA. But I could definitely see Charles and Tolu battling out in the Motor City Cruise this year. But that's all 22 players on this training camp roster, you guys. I know this podcast is a little bit longer, about 30 minutes solo podcast. I usually try to keep under 20 minutes, but let me know what you guys think of the 2025-2026 Detroit Pistons training camp roster. Are there any players on this list that you're excited to watch, like outside of the starters? Let me know what they're doing at backup for, you guys. I just don't know. Hope you guys are having a great night. I'll talk to you guys down below in the comment section. Like always, hope you guys are staying safe. Take care. And go Pistons. Peace.